The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with the usual chatter of 47 different alien species. Representatives floated, crawled, and walked across the massive chamber, their strange forms casting shadows under the bright lights. Some looked like giant insects, others like walking rocks, and a few resembled nothing more than clouds of gas held together by energy fields. Ambassador Zekthar clicked his way to the center speaking platform on his 6 insect-like legs. His black shell gleamed under the lights as he adjusted the translation device around his neck. The clicking sounds he made turned into words that every species could understand. Chairman Vordal, a being made of living crystal that stood 12 feet tall, called for silence. His voice rang like bells across the chamber. The Council recognizes Ambassador Zekthar of the Hegemony Empire. Speak your report. Zekthar's compound eyes swept across the gathered aliens. His mandibles clicked nervously before he began. Honored Council members, I come before you today with news that will shock you all. Our third fleet has been completely destroyed. A ripple of surprise moved through the chamber. The Hegemony Third Fleet was one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. It had conquered over 50 worlds in the past decade alone. Which enemy force accomplished this feat? Asked Dr. Neil Oth, a tall blue-skinned being with 4 arms. She was the Council's top expert on alien species and warfare. Did the Vorthan Navy finally challenge you directly? Zekthar's antennae twitched, in what his species considered embarrassment. No, honored doctor. The enemy was a primitive world called Earth. The chamber fell completely silent. Then, slowly, a sound began to build. It started as a few chuckles from different species, then grew into full laughter. Even the usually serious Chairman Vordal's crystal body seemed to shimmer with amusement. Dr. Nyloth pulled up her data tablet and quickly searched the galactic database. Earth? The third planet in the Sol system? The one populated by those tiny pink creatures called humans? Yes, Zekthar said, his voice barely above a whisper. Admiral Quentar of the Vorthan Navy stood up, his reptilian features twisted in disbelief. Are you seriously telling us that primitives who still use chemical rockets destroyed 12 of your dreadnoughts? The laughter in the chamber grew louder. Some species made sounds that couldn't be translated but were clearly mocking. Zekthar waited for the noise to die down before continuing. I know how it sounds, Admiral, but I have witnessed the evidence myself. The humans, they fight like nothing we have ever encountered. Chairman Vordal raised one crystalline hand for silence. Ambassador, perhaps you should explain exactly what happened. From the beginning. Zekthar's wings buzzed anxiously. 3 months ago, High Command decided that Earth would be an easy conquest. The planet has valuable resources, and the humans have no real technology to speak of. Their fastest ships barely reach 1% of light speed. Their weapons are simple projectiles, fired by explosions. They have no energy shields, no plasma cannons, no quantum communicators. Dr. Niall Oth nodded as she read from her tablet. Our scouts confirm this. Humans are classified as a Type 0 civilization. They have only recently developed nuclear power and basic computers. Their average lifespan is less than 100 of their years. They should pose no threat to any spacefaring species. That is what we thought, Zekthar continued. So we sent the Third Fleet with orders to demand surrender. Standard procedure: show overwhelming force, accept their submission, and begin resource extraction. And what went wrong? Admiral Quentar asked, though his tone suggested he thought the whole story was made up. Zekthar's mandibles clicked rapidly. Everything. The humans received our surrender demand and sent back a single message. Just 2 words in their primitive language. The translation was "get lost," though I believe the actual meaning was much stronger. This brought another round of chuckles from the assembled aliens. The idea of primitives insulting a galactic superpower was amusing to most of them. Then, what happened? Chairman Vordal asked. We moved the fleet into Earth's orbital space and began broadcasting warnings. We told them their planet would be conquered and their people would serve the hegemony. We expected panic, maybe some desperate attempts at negotiation. Instead, they attacked us. Dr. Neloth looked confused. With what weapons? Our data shows they have only basic missiles and projectile weapons. They used everything, Zekthar said. Old rockets filled with nuclear warheads. New ships they built in a matter of days. Commercial vessels loaded with explosives. But the weapons were not the problem. The problem was how they used them. The ambassador paused, seeming to gather courage to continue. The humans did not try to disable our ships or force surrender. They did not attempt to preserve their own forces for future battles. Every single human ship that engaged us was used as a weapon itself. They rammed into our vessels at maximum speed, often detonating their power cores at the moment of impact. Admiral Quentar's expression changed from amusement to confusion. That makes no tactical sense. They would lose every ship in such attacks. They did lose every ship, Zekthar confirmed. But they destroyed 3 of our dreadnoughts with these suicide attacks. Ships that should have been invulnerable to anything they possessed. The chamber was no longer filled with laughter. Several council members were leaning forward, suddenly, interested in the details. How is that possible? Dr. Nyloth asked. Even a nuclear explosion should not penetrate hegemony shields. Zekthar's antennae drooped. We do not know. Our scientists are still studying the wreckage. Somehow the humans found ways to focus the energy of their primitive weapons. They targeted specific points on our ships, areas where the shields were weakest. It was as if they understood our technology better than we do. Chairman Vordal's crystal form pulsed with concern. How many humans died in these attacks? All of them, Zekthar said quietly. Every human crew that engaged us perished. But they kept coming. Wave after wave of ships, each one piloted by beings who knew they would not survive. They showed no fear, no hesitation. They flew into our weapons fire as if death meant nothing to them. The ambassador looked around the chamber at the faces, staring back at him. Some showed disbelief, others concern, and a few showed the beginning of fear. In the end, we lost 12 dreadnoughts, 40 cruisers, and hundreds of support vessels. The humans lost perhaps 200 small ships and maybe 10,000 crew members. By any measure, we should have won easily. But the surviving human forces continued to attack until Admiral Kothvar ordered a full retreat. The chamber was completely silent now. The implications of what they were hearing began to sink in. Dr. Nyloth was frantically reading through her database. This cannot be accurate. Humans are listed as a peaceful species. They have conflicts among themselves, but nothing on this scale. Perhaps that is why we underestimated them, Zekthar said. They practice warfare on each other constantly. Every human nation maintains armies and weapons. They have spent centuries perfecting the art of killing other humans. When we arrived, they simply turned those skills toward us. Chairman Vordal's voice rang through the chamber. This council will investigate these claims thoroughly. If they prove true, we may need to reconsider our entire approach to primitive species. As the session ended, and the various aliens began to leave, small groups formed to discuss what they had heard. Some still insisted the story was impossible. Others wondered if the hegemony was hiding some other disaster behind this tale of human resistance. But a few of the older, more experienced, council members began to worry that perhaps the galaxy had just discovered something far more dangerous than any of them had imagined. The huge metal building floated in space like a giant wheel. Inside, thousands of strange beings from all over the galaxy sat in their special seats. Some had 6 arms, others looked like giant bugs, and a few were just floating balls of light. This was the Galactic Council, where all the smart space races met to talk about important things. Today felt like any other day. The beings talked quietly among themselves about trade deals and peace treaties. Ambassador Zixathala from the hegemony moved her crystal-like arms nervously. She had purple skin and eyes that glowed like stars. Her job was to speak for one of the most powerful groups in the galaxy. She stood up slowly and walked to the center of the big room. Her footsteps echoed in the quiet space. All the other beings stopped talking and looked at her. She cleared her throat, making a sound like tiny bells ringing. "Great members of the council," she said in a voice that shook a little, "I have important news to share with you today." The room became completely silent. Even the floating light beings stopped moving. Everyone waited to hear what she would say. "The hegemony has made a big decision," Zixathala continued. "We have voted to invade the planet called Earth, the home of the humans." For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The silence was so deep you could hear the hum of the space station's engines. Then something amazing happened. One being started to laugh. Then another. Then another. Soon the whole room was filled with the strangest sounds. The bug-like Zephyrians clicked their sharp teeth together. The snake-like Velcarians made hissing sounds that meant they found something very funny. Even the serious rock people from Granite Prime made rumbling noises that sounded like an earthquake laughing. Council Prime Executor Thrain was a huge lizard man who had been alive for over 500 years. He was supposed to be serious and respectful, but tears of laughter were running down his green, scaly face. He wiped his eyes with a clawed hand that was bigger than a human head. "Surely you are making a joke, Ambassador," Thrain said, still, chuckling. "You want to invade the humans? Those tiny creatures who can barely leave their own planet? The ones who still burn liquid fuel to fly their little metal ships?" Ambassador Kelmtar from the Science Council was a tall, thin being with 4 eyes. All 4 eyes were wide with surprise and amusement. "Ambassador Zixathala, our last reports show that humans just learned how to split atoms a few hundred years ago. Some of them still believe their planet is flat." The laughter got even louder. A floating, jellyfish-like being named Counselor Vrex pulsed bright colors that meant extreme amusement in his language. "The humans?" he said in a voice like singing wind. "The same humans who fight wars over which invisible sky being they believe in? The ones who destroy their own environment for shiny rocks?" Zixathala's purple face turned darker. She was getting embarrassed and angry. "This is not a joke," she said loudly, trying to be heard over the laughter. "The Hegemony Council has spoken. We believe Earth has resources we need." This made everyone laugh even harder. Senator Quilloth, who looked like a giant bird with silver feathers, squawked with laughter. "What resources could they possibly have that we need? They still use paper money in some places." Ambassador Thexara from the Trade Federation was a blue-skinned woman with tentacles instead of hair. She was usually very serious about business, but even she was smiling. "Ambassador, with respect, humans are at least 2,000 years behind the rest of us in technology. They just learned how to make their computers talk to each other. Their fastest ships take months to reach their own moon." The wolf-like beings from the Lupus system were howling with laughter. Their leader, Pac Alpha Rendar, could barely speak between laughs. "My youngest pup has toys more advanced than human technology." Meanwhile, very far away on a small blue and green planet, life was going on as normal. Captain Jake Morrison was a strong man with short brown hair and serious brown eyes. He wore the dark blue uniform of the Earth Defense Force. He had no idea that thousands of alien beings were laughing about his entire species. Jake was standing in a control room filled with computer screens and blinking lights. Outside the windows, he could see other human soldiers practicing with their weapons and vehicles. They moved with purpose and skill, training for threats they hoped would never come. "Captain Morrison," called Lieutenant Amy Chen from her computer station. She was a young woman with black hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her fingers moved quickly over the keyboard as she watched data scroll across her screen. "All communication. Systems are working perfectly. The new satellite network is online." "Good work, Chen," Jake said. He walked over to look at her screen. It showed a map of Earth with hundreds of tiny dots representing satellites, ships, and bases around the planet. Any unusual signals today? Nothing, sir, Amy replied. Just the normal space junk and radio noise. Across the room, Sergeant Pete Williams was talking into a radio headset. He was a big man with red hair and freckles. His job was to coordinate with ground forces all around the world. All units report ready, Captain, he said. Training exercise. Echo 7 is complete. All objectives met. Jake nodded with satisfaction. His soldiers were good at their jobs. They trained hard every day, even though Earth had been peaceful for many years. Most humans thought they were alone in the universe. The government kept information about possible alien life very secret. Back in the council chamber, the laughter was finally starting to calm down. Prime Executor Thrain wiped his eyes one more time and tried to look serious again. Ambassador Zixathala, surely the mighty hegemony has better things to do than bother with such a primitive species. They have not even achieved faster-than-light travel, added Counselor Meshka, a being that looked like a floating brain in a glass jar. Their most advanced computers are less powerful than a child's toy. Ambassador Zixathala's crystal arms were glowing brighter now, which meant she was getting very angry. The decision has been made, she said firmly. The invasion fleet will leave for Earth in 3 standard months. This caused another wave of laughter. The idea seemed so ridiculous that many beings thought it was still some kind of elaborate joke. Ambassador Kethron of the Ancient Archivists was the only one not laughing. He was incredibly old, even for his long-lived species. His wrinkled face looked worried as he watched the others make fun of the humans. He remembered things that others had forgotten. He knew that sometimes the most dangerous enemies were the ones you underestimated, but nobody was listening to the old archivist. Everyone was too busy laughing at the idea of the mighty hegemony wasting time and resources on a bunch of primitive humans who still thought they were alone in the universe. The greatest joke in galactic history had just been announced. Soon they would discover it was not funny at all. The once mighty Zephyrian fleet was dying. In 30 minutes, 3,000 alien ships had been reduced to fewer than 200 survivors. The survivors were scattered and confused, their formation broken, their confidence shattered. General Marcus Thompson stumbled across the bridge of his flagship. The Dominion's edge was badly damaged. Sparks flew from broken control panels. The lights flickered on and off. Half of his crew was dead, and the other half was too scared to think. Clearly, Marcus had never experienced defeat before. In 47 previous conquests, he had always been the hunter. Now, he was the prey, and he did not know how to handle it. His hands shook as he tried to understand what had gone wrong. Sir, we are receiving surrender signals from 17 of our ships, reported his communications officer. The young alien's voice was high with panic. They are asking for permission to surrender to the humans. Marcus wanted to grant permission. Every instinct told him to save whatever ships he could, but he knew the humans would not accept surrender. They had shown no mercy so far. They would show none now. Colonel Amy Baker watched the destruction from the command deck of the UES Retribution. This was humanity's most advanced warship, and it had been hidden behind the moon for 10 years. Now it emerged from the shadows like a predator stepping into the light. The Retribution was smaller than the alien flagship, but it was built with technology that combined human innovation with captured alien science. Its weapons were more advanced than anything the Zephyrian Empire had ever seen. Amy gave the order to attack. The Retribution fired a single shot from its main weapon. The shot was a beam of pure energy that cut through space like a sword of light. It struck an alien cruiser and the ship simply vanished, turned into atoms in less than a second. The surviving alien ships tried to fight back, but their weapons could not penetrate the Retribution's shields. The human ship moved through the alien formation like a shark among minnows, destroying everything in its path. Dr. Kevin Roberts was in his laboratory on Europa Station, analyzing pieces of alien technology that his teams had recovered from the battle. Each piece of wreckage contained secrets that would make humanity's weapons even more powerful. Kevin had been studying alien technology for 30 years. He had learned how to make their energy shields stronger, their weapons more deadly, their engines faster. Now he was discovering new technologies that the aliens had never shared with anyone. One piece of wreckage contained the blueprint for a weapon that could destroy entire star systems. Another contained instructions for building ships that could travel between galaxies. The aliens had given humanity the keys to becoming the most powerful species in the universe. Lieutenant Alex Johnson was still listening to alien communications, but there was not much to hear anymore. Most of the alien ships were dead. The few survivors were too busy trying to escape to send messages. Alex did intercept one final transmission from General Marcus Thompson. The alien general was broadcasting a warning to his home world, trying to tell them about the trap they had fallen into. "Do not underestimate the humans," Marcus was saying. "They are not primitive. They have been watching us for decades. They know everything about us. Send no more fleets to Earth. It is a death trap." Alex smiled as he recorded the message. It was too late for warnings. Humanity's secret ships were already on their way to the alien homeworlds. The Zephyrian Empire would soon discover that their worst nightmare was just beginning. President Laura Collins stood in the White House bunker, preparing to address the world. For 50 years, she and her predecessors had kept the greatest secret in human history. Now it was time to tell the truth. Laura had been president for only 2 years, but she had known about the alien threat her entire adult life. Her father had been one of the original scientists who discovered the first crashed alien ship in 1975. Her mother had helped design the weapons that were now destroying the invasion fleet. The speech Laura was about to give had been written and rewritten, dozens of times by dozens of different presidents. Each president had hoped they would never have to give it. Laura was both honored and terrified to be the one who finally spoke the words. Above ground, people were starting to notice strange lights in the sky. The alien ships were burning up as they fell toward Earth's atmosphere. To most people, it looked like an unusually spectacular meteor shower. They had no idea they were watching the destruction of an invasion fleet. Commander Kate Williams activated the emergency broadcast system from her bunker beneath New York. Every television, radio, and internet connection on Earth would carry the president's message. The age of secrets was ending. Major Chris Taylor was coordinating the cleanup operation from Mars Base Alpha. Human ships were moving through the debris field, collecting alien survivors and technology. Some aliens were still alive in the wreckage, trapped in their damaged ships. Chris had orders to rescue the alien survivors, but not out of mercy. The aliens would be questioned about their home worlds, their military bases, their weaknesses. Every piece of information would be used to plan humanity's counterattack. The aliens had come to Earth expecting to find primitive humans who would beg for mercy. Instead, they had found predators who had been planning their destruction for 50 years. The hunters had become the hunted. Captain Ryan Mitchell emerged from his asteroid fortress for the first time in 2 years. His railguns had destroyed over 30 alien ships, but now the battle was over. Ryan looked out at the debris field that had once been the mighty Zephyrian fleet. Pieces of alien ships floated everywhere. Some pieces were as big as buildings. Others were as small as coins. All of them told the same story. The Zephyrian Empire had made a fatal mistake when they decided to attack Earth. Dr. Paul Anderson deactivated his quantum disruption field generators. The invisible barriers that had trapped the alien fleet disappeared, but it did not matter anymore. There were no alien ships left to escape. Paul had spent his entire career preparing for this day. Now that it was over, he felt strangely empty. The moment he had worked toward for decades had passed in less than an hour. But Paul knew this was not the end. It was the beginning. Humanity had proven they could defend their home world. Now they would prove they could take the fight to their enemies. Agent Holly Richards received new orders from Earth Command. Her mission was changing. Instead of watching for alien attacks, she would now be coordinating humanity's expansion into space. The age of human conquest was beginning. Holly smiled as she read her orders. For 20 years she had been playing defense. Now she would finally get to play offense. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could do when they stopped. Hiding and started hunting, General Marcus Thompson made one final decision as his flagship died around him. He activated the ship's self-destruct sequence. He would not give the humans the satisfaction of capturing him alive. As the Dominion's edge exploded in a ball of fire, Marcus Thompson took with him the knowledge of how badly the Zephyrian Empire had underestimated humanity. But it was too late for that knowledge to save his people. The invasion of Earth was over. The invasion of the galaxy was about to begin. 6 months after the destruction of the Zephyrian invasion fleet, humanity revealed its greatest secret. The solar system was filled with massive human warships that no one had ever seen before. These ships had been built in hidden factories, on the dark side of the moon, and in the asteroid belt. Admiral Rick Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, the largest warship humanity had ever constructed. The ship was 5 miles long and packed with weapons that combined human engineering with stolen alien technology. It was one of 50 similar ships that had been hidden throughout the solar system for decades. Rick looked out at the fleet of human ships gathering near Mars. Each ship was crewed by soldiers who had trained their entire lives for this moment. They were not going to defend Earth anymore. They were going to attack the aliens on their own worlds. The Zephyrian Empire had made a terrible mistake when they invaded Earth. They had awakened a sleeping giant, and now that giant was angry. Captain Nicole Hayes commanded the UES Predator, a fast attack ship designed to strike deep into enemy territory. Her mission was to destroy the Zephyrian Military Academy on their home planet of Zephyr Prime. For 20 years, human spies had been mapping every building on that world. Nicole knew exactly where the alien commanders lived, where they worked, and where they felt safe. Soon they would learn that nowhere in the galaxy was safe from human revenge. Her ship's computers contained detailed information about every major target in the Zephyrian Empire. Human agents had been gathering this intelligence for decades, pretending to be traders and explorers while secretly preparing for war. Commander Ian Douglas was aboard the UES Liberator, heading toward a distant star system called Corva. The aliens had conquered the Corva system 200 years ago and enslaved the native population. But the Corvans had never stopped fighting. Ian's mission was to arm the Corvan resistance and help them drive out their alien oppressors. For 50 years, humans had been secretly contacting enslaved species throughout the galaxy. Now those species would finally have the weapons they needed to win their freedom. The Zephyrian Empire had made many enemies during their centuries of conquest. Humanity was about to turn all of those enemies into allies. Dr. Kevin Roberts was in his laboratory, putting the finishing touches on humanity's newest weapon. It was called a Star Killer, and it could make an entire sun explode. The technology had been stolen from the wreckage of the alien invasion fleet. Kevin felt no guilt about using such a terrible weapon. The aliens had come to Earth planning to kill billions of innocent people. Now they would learn what it felt like to face extinction. The Star Killer would only be used if necessary, but Kevin wanted the aliens to know it existed. Sometimes the threat of ultimate destruction was more powerful than destruction itself. President Laura Collins was in the Oval Office, meeting with leaders from around the world. She was explaining humanity's new role in the galaxy. Earth would no longer hide from alien threats. Instead, Earth would eliminate those threats before they could become dangerous. Laura showed the world leaders pictures of human fleets already attacking alien military bases across the galaxy. In just 6 months, humanity had gone from being unknown primitives to being the most feared species in space. Some world leaders were afraid of humanity's new power. They worried that humans might become as cruel as the aliens they were fighting. Laura understood their concerns, but she also knew the truth. Humans would never again allow themselves to be defenseless. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and only the strong survived. Captain Janet Morgan was aboard the UES Reaper, broadcasting a message on all alien communication frequencies. The message was simple, but terrifying. It was a declaration that the Terran Federation did not accept surrender from species that had committed genocide. Janet's words were being heard on thousands of alien worlds. For the first time in galactic history, the Zephyrian Empire was afraid. They had always been the predators. Now they were learning what it felt like to be prey. The message promised that humanity would hunt down every alien ship, every alien base, and every alien world that had participated in the invasion of Earth. There would be no mercy and no escape. Lieutenant Alex Johnson was now commanding a deep space reconnaissance ship called the UES Ghost. His mission was to locate the main Zephyrian fleet and track its movements. The aliens were gathering their forces for a desperate counterattack, but they did not know that humans were watching their every move. Alex had learned to speak 17 different alien languages during his years as an intelligence officer. Now, he was using those skills to intercept enemy communications and stay one step ahead of their plans. The aliens were panicking. Their messages spoke of weapons they could not understand and enemies who seemed to appear from nowhere. Some alien commanders were already discussing surrender, but their leaders would not listen. Major Chris Taylor was leading the assault on the Zephyrian supply depot at Rigel Station. The station was supposed to be impregnable, protected by energy shields and automated defense systems. But humans had been studying those defenses for 30 years. Chris's ships attacked the station using tactics the aliens had never seen before. Instead of trying to break through the shields, the humans simply teleported explosive devices inside the station. The entire facility was destroyed in minutes. Similar attacks were happening all across the galaxy. Every major Zephyrian military installation was being systematically destroyed by human forces that struck without warning and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Commander Kate Williams was coordinating the liberation of enslaved worlds from her command ship, the UES Justice. Her fleet was working with resistance fighters on a dozen different planets, providing them with advanced weapons and tactical support. The aliens had ruled these worlds through fear and superior technology, but now the oppressed species had access. to human weapons that were even more advanced than alien technology. The balance of power was shifting rapidly. Kate watched as an entire alien garrison surrendered to a force of liberated slaves armed with human energy weapons. The scene was being repeated on worlds throughout the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire was collapsing from within. Admiral Jake Harrison was planning the final assault on Zephyr Prime, the alien homeworld. The attack would be led by the entire human fleet, supported by ships from a dozen liberated species. It would be the largest space battle in galactic history. Jake knew that destroying the alien homeworld would send a message to every species in the galaxy. Humanity was not just another primitive race struggling to survive. Humans were the new, apex predators, and they would not tolerate threats to their existence. The Zephyrian Empire had awakened something terrible when they attacked Earth. They had awakened humanity's capacity for total war, and now that capacity would be turned against them with devastating effect. Agent Holly Richards was aboard a stealth ship approaching the edge of the galaxy. Her mission was to scout for other hostile empires that might threaten humanity in the future. The defeat of the Zephyrians was just the beginning of human expansion into space. Holly's ship was equipped with technology that made it invisible to all known forms of detection. She could observe alien civilizations without being seen, just as humans had observed the Zephyrians for 50 years before their invasion. Any species that showed signs of aggression toward other races would be marked for future attention. Humanity would never again wait for enemies to strike first. The age of human defensiveness was over. The age of human dominance had begun. The galaxy would learn to fear the species that had turned from prey to predator in a single generation. And in the depths of space, human ships continued their hunt, carrying a simple message to every corner of the galaxy. Earth remembers, and Earth does not forgive. Lieutenant Colonel Rick Barnes sat in the primary command center, buried 3 miles beneath the Colorado mountains. The room was filled with dozens of computer screens showing every part of the solar system. For the past 4 days, Rick had watched. The alien fleet moved steadily toward Earth like a slow-motion avalanche. Now it was time to spring the trap. Rick looked at the countdown timer on the main display. 12 hours remained until the alien surrender deadline expired. But humanity had no intention of waiting that long. The surprise attack would begin in exactly 37 minutes, at precisely the moment when the alien fleet would be in the worst possible position to respond. "All stations report ready," announced Major Carol Hughes from her position at the communications console. "Hidden platforms are online, stealth ships are in position, disruption charges are armed and targeted." Rick nodded and activated his headset microphone. Throughout the solar system, hidden command centers received his signal simultaneously. "This is Control Center Alpha. Operation Thunderstrike is authorized. Begin countdown sequence." Supreme Commander Zekthul was reviewing casualty projections when the first anomaly appeared on his screens. One of his outer patrol ships reported a brief power fluctuation in their shield generators. The fluctuation lasted only 3 seconds before the shields returned to normal power. Zekthul barely glanced at the report. Power fluctuations were common when ships operated near stellar bodies. The local star was producing electromagnetic interference that occasionally affected sensitive equipment. It was nothing to worry about. 2 minutes later, another ship reported the same problem, then another. Within 5 minutes, 17 different vessels had experienced identical power fluctuations. "Tactical officer," Zekthul called across the bridge. "Are these fluctuations connected to the stellar interference patterns?" The tactical officer studied his instruments carefully. "Yes, Commander. The electromagnetic readings are consistent with solar activity. Our shields are compensating automatically." Zekthul accepted this explanation because it fit with everything he knew about primitive solar systems. The humans had not developed the technology to affect Kethvar shields from such distances. The power fluctuations were simply a natural phenomenon that would end once his fleet moved away from the interference zone. What Zekthul did not realize was that those power fluctuations were not natural at all. They were precisely targeted electromagnetic pulses designed to map the exact frequency signatures of his shield generators. Dr. Katie Williams was collecting data from every test pulse, refining her calculations for the main attack. Rick Barnes watched the data flow across his screens with growing excitement. The test pulses were working perfectly. Each burst of electromagnetic energy was providing detailed information about alien shield frequencies. In another 20 minutes, Katie would have enough data to tune the disruption weapons to maximum effectiveness. "All units stand by," Rick announced. "Primary assault begins in 18 minutes. Captain Tony Miller commanded the stealth attack ship Nightshade, hidden behind an asteroid 2 million miles from the alien fleet. His ship had been drifting in complete silence for 6 hours, powered down to minimal systems to avoid detection. Now it was time to power up and prepare for the most important mission in human history." Tony activated his ship's systems one by one, bringing weapons and shields online with practiced efficiency. Around him, his crew worked with the quiet intensity of people who knew that the fate of their entire species depended on their performance in the next few minutes. "Stealth field is stable," reported his tactical officer. "Electromagnetic pulse cannon is charged and ready. Target locks are confirmed on alien vessels 7 through 12. Tony checked his chronometer. 15 minutes until the attack began. 15 minutes until humanity discovered whether their desperate plan could actually work against an enemy that had conquered hundreds of worlds. At exactly 14 minutes and 30 seconds before the deadline, Rick Barnes gave the order that would change galactic history forever. "All units, this is Control Center Alpha. Execute Operation Thunderstrike. I repeat, execute Thunderstrike." The response was instantaneous. Throughout the solar system, hidden weapon platforms that had been disguised as space debris suddenly revealed their true nature. Automated cannons emerged from fake asteroids. Missile launchers rose from what appeared to be disabled satellites. Electromagnetic pulse generators that had been hidden for years finally activated with devastating precision. The first wave of the attack was not designed to destroy the alien fleet. It was designed to deliver a message that would echo across the galaxy. Katie Williams watched her electromagnetic pulse weapons fire simultaneously at 50 different alien ships. The pulses were perfectly tuned to disrupt Kethvar shield frequencies without causing any damage to the ships themselves. For exactly 30 seconds, 50 alien vessels found themselves completely defenseless. During those 30 seconds, human stealth ships appeared from nowhere and began broadcasting detailed scans of the defenseless alien vessels back to their command ships. The humans were demonstrating that they could have destroyed 50 ships easily, but had chosen not to. They were showing mercy while proving their capability. Supreme Commander Zekthul stared at his tactical displays in complete shock. 50 of his ships had somehow lost their shields simultaneously. Human vessels that his scanners had never detected were suddenly visible throughout his fleet formation. Most impossibly of all, the humans were broadcasting technical specifications of his own ships back to him with perfect accuracy. "How is this possible?" Zekthul demanded. "Our intelligence reports indicated that this species had barely achieved Interplanetary flight. How do they possess technology that can disrupt our shields? His tactical officer was frantically checking his instruments. Commander, the humans appear to have been monitoring our communications for decades. They knew we were coming. They knew our ship designs. They knew our tactical procedures. This entire operation appears to have been anticipated and prepared for. Zekthul felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. In over a century of conquest, he had never encountered a species that had prepared so thoroughly for his arrival. The humans had not only detected his fleet weeks before it arrived, but they had used that time to develop weapons specifically designed to counter Kethvar technology. Dr. Nancy Thompson's voice suddenly filled every communication channel in the alien fleet. She spoke calmly and clearly, as if she were giving a lecture to university students rather than addressing the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Supreme Commander Zekthul, Nancy began, my name is Dr. Nancy Thompson, representing the people of Earth. What you have just witnessed was a demonstration of humanity's defensive capabilities. We have been monitoring galactic communications for over 50 years. We know about your empire, your methods, and your weaknesses. Zekthul listened in growing horror as the human scientist continued her broadcast. The precision strikes you, just experienced, could have been lethal strikes. We chose to disable your shields rather than destroy your ships, because we prefer to resolve conflicts through communication rather than violence. However, we want you to understand that Earth is not a helpless target. Nancy paused for a moment, letting her words sink in before delivering the statement that would shake the foundations of the Kethvar Dominion. You have 72 hours to withdraw your fleet from this solar system. If you choose to attack Earth, you will discover that humanity has spent decades preparing for this possibility. The weapons you have seen today represent only a small fraction of our defensive capabilities. We do not wish to destroy your fleet, but we will not hesitate to do so if you force our hand. The transmission ended, leaving Zekthul's bridge in stunned silence. For the first time in his career, the Supreme Commander found himself facing an enemy that had turned his own tactics against him. The humans had achieved complete surprise against a force that had never been surprised before. Rick Barnes watched the alien fleet's response on his tactical displays. Many of the ships were changing course, moving into defensive formations that they had never needed to use before. The Kethvar were learning what it felt like to be the weaker force in a battle. Phase 1 complete, Rick announced to his staff. Now we wait to see if they're smart enough to accept our offer.